Well, this is bound to happen after planning this for more than a year, ever since I considered on doing a marathon of 3 Cartoon Network shows. And with Quake of the Creek's marathon being on hiatus for way too long, with the amount of changes on the schedules into making this marathon happen, it doesn't change the fact that there are more episodes in this show compared to OKKO and We Bare Bears. I did my best to pick out the best episodes for me to review, along with the 3 miniseries Capture the Flag, Heart of the Forest, and the Sleepover Chronicles that are all gonna be in one single video each, that is. And I am going to do a separate video on Jessica's Big Little World later on in this ×3 marathon. With that being said, let's begin my 10 years on being on YouTube with this 6th edition of Summerpalooza, Quake of the Creek, OKKO Let's Be Heroes, and We Bare Bears ×3 marathon. The episode that we're gonna be reviewing from Quake of the Creek it's its first episode, each to explore what Quake and his friends are exploring an unvisited area in the creek, which is the Poison Ivy Grove. Before he left home, Quake was drawing out a map of the creek, but everyone in his family kicked him out from the living room, the kitchen, and the exercise room, so he had to draw the map at the creek, mainly by the stump, in order to continue his progress, which leads to him finding the Poison Ivy Grove that has an hidden area, which led to the events of this episode. Truth be told, when I watched this episode for the first time back in late 2020, it wasn't really my taste of watching cartoons. Granted, I was in full gear on binge-watching cartoons earlier this decade, but at the same time, upon watching episodes here and there from this show, it really feels like that the show is meant to be its own thing, which is the whole point, but back then I just didn't understand the appeal of the creek itself. And that's literally the thing. Whenever you watch a show for the first time, it's gonna be mostly difficult for you to get adjusted, because considering that I never spent my time in any creek during my childhood, and most of the time I go outside in the backyard, which is bigger compared to the backyard in Quake's backyard, I would find it hard to find more appeal inside the creek, considering that we never get to see these characters in school, since all this is taking place in the summer, which is accurate to say the least. But since there are other options to do in the summer, I really have the impression that whenever I look at Quake of the Creek characters and what they do in the summer, clearly they probably wanted to express themselves a lot more than what they do at home or even at school. But since that there were a couple of episodes that did showcase the characters expressing mostly normally in the later seasons when they're not in the creek, there's a reason onto why I'm starting to see the appeal from this show, along with the work in progress of my fanfic Steven Universe of the Creek, which is really obvious onto why that fanfic has been going on for almost 5 years. Getting back to the premise of the episode, where the main characters are heading to the destination while avoiding someone coming in their way, while those suits get damaged in the process. Truth be told, remembering this episode wasn't easy, because this is mainly the only parts of the episode where I remember the characters going through the Poison Ivy Grove. So I can't really see much of the appeal of this episode until I rewatched it for this review. I did remember Scratchless One, whom is the only character that does one thing in this entire show, and that's mainly the fact that he just spends his time in Poison Ivy because he wants to get away from his 6 siblings, which is similar to Quake getting away from his family to work on his map in the Quake. And the fact that, despite with brief appearances here and there throughout the series, this is literally the only episode that gives him spotlight, and it's all from the first episode. Even though that there are multiple characters in this show that gave out a great impression, just thinking the Scratchless One only having one major appearance, which is the first episode, and not much, it's either the fact that the characters just want to get away from the Poison Ivy to prevent getting more itches on the skin, or the fact that I really remember this episode a lot less than before, up until I rewatched the episode. I'm just saying, the ideals in this show when it comes to how the characters are portrayed made me understand the show a lot more compared to back then when I was focusing on other cartoons like Steven Universe and We Bare Bears. So when it comes to the ending of this episode, when it comes to the trampoline being the mystery, well, the Scratchless One uses it to have Quake and his friends come back home since the timekeeper of the Quake announced that dinner has arrived at their place. I have to admit, it's honestly an ending that is way more memorable, to the point that there are some limitations when it comes to imagination, but at the same time when it comes to cartoon physics, there's a balance. Like, it may be difficult for me to believe that this is mostly fantasy when it comes to Quake and his friends getting launched off from the trampoline over the creek back to their place. But at the same time, it really gave me the impression that this is mostly cartoon logic rather than the fantasy logic in this show itself. While this episode isn't one of my favorite first episodes when it comes to any other cartoon that I went through, I have to admit it made me appreciate it a lot more, and the same case could happen in future episodes in this marathon. I'm giving this first episode of Quake of the Quake a 7.25 out of 10, and let's tune in the second marathon of Summerpalooza 6. OKKO, let's be heroes. This is going to be a long summer, even more longer than Steven Universe Marathon 2 years ago. You